Hi everyone, this is Anil. In this video, we will see a CMDB data load issue, right? So the topic of this video is why is my CI not getting updated? So first we'll talk about the setup and then we'll talk about the issue and the fix. So the setup is, so you have a CMDB called, let's say this is a source system and you have a CMDB called, let's say, Varan CMDB, and there's a Windows Server table, so we'll call it as uh, VC underscore win underscore serve. So that is your table, and it has, let's say, attributes called name and serial number and updated timestamp. So the three attributes: name, serial number, updated timestamp. And now you have built a data source here that will read data from this system through a REST API, let's say, and then you have built an ETL on top of that to basically transform this data into the target CMDB class, which is CMDB underscore CI underscore win underscore server. So this is the setup you have done. Right now, we don't have to get into specifics of how the data source is set up, but we'll talk at the mapping level in the ETL. So in the ETL, what you have done is, let's say here, the name gets mapped to name, and serial number gets mapped to serial underscore number, and similarly, you have updated timestamp, right? So this we will map to a field called source underscore recency underscore timestamp. So this is a significant field of very importance. So we'll talk about why it is important. So, but this is mapped to the updated timestamp, right? So we'll just say updated is equal to this field. Now this is the mapping you have in your ETL. So you ran the scan the first time. So first scan, let's say, and your record got created, right? So this is your name, and then this is your S number, and then updated timestamp. So now let's say the name is A server, serial number is ASN1, and updated timestamp is like, yeah, like 12 p.m. 1st of Jan, right? Now, what happened is, let's say something got changed on this server in the CMDB in ServiceNow. So this is your ServiceNow instance. Let's say the serial number has changed to ASN2, right? So somebody has manually changed it. Nothing has changed in the system. So now when you do a second scan, so what will happen is this record will not get updated because nothing has changed in the source system, and uh, that is where ServiceNow will not treat that as an update, the whole IRE engine, which is why this record will still have the old serial number in it. So now let's say there are a lot of such records which are accidentally updated, or somebody has touched it by mistake or due to some reason, and you want to fix all this data to the source state. So how do we do that? So before we get to the solution, we'll understand some tables which are involved, right? So there's a table called uh, sys underscore object underscore source. So we'll write it at this level. Uh, sys object source. So this table stores information about what uh, payload has. So basically, it tells you like what is the target record, which is your, we'll say target record, target table, last scan. So this is an important field again. So last scan, uh, but then these two are there. So the target record will point to this record here, and the target table will point to this table here. So basically, it is telling us that when was the last scan performed. When it says last scan, it means when was the last time data got pulled from this, and then which record got updated as part of that scan. It also will track the key, which is your unique identifier of this record, right? So now, if the last scan is later or newer than this source recency timestamp, so which means, let's say this is like uh, 01 01 2020. Let's not worry about the timestamp, but it is the 1st January 2020, and then you scanned on let's say 01 02 2020, right? So after one, so basically in the source system it was updated one like on 1st of January, but then on 2nd of January or February 1st, either way it doesn't matter, but basically you have scanned it afterwards, right? And the current date is, let's say 0103 2020. This is your current date. Now, what you want to do is you want to fix the CMDB on this date, but it will not fix itself because nothing has changed in the source system. And then ServiceNow is treating that it has a latest update than what has changed in the source system, right? So now how do we fix it? So there are multiple ways of doing it. The first option is, option one is fix in source system, as in make a change in the source system so that the updated timestamp gets updated, so that the last scan will so the source recency will get updated, and then that way when you make a pull it will update the record. That is one option, but this is generally not recommended because the source system will be feeding data into multiple targets, not just ServiceNow, so we don't want to make them change the data because of this. The second option is so let's write it here. We can reset this last scan to a date in the past. Let's say we want to make this before this date, right? We want to call it as like change it to 01 or like we can say 31st 12 2019. So if you set it as this value, then the source recency will be later than the last scan. So which is why when you run the update or when you make a pull, then it will update the record. That is second option. Now, the third option is when you bring the data from this source system through a REST API, you basically will go through import sets, right? So these are your import sets. So here we can touch this updated timestamp. So we can say that always set this updated timestamp to current date time, right? Current date time. So what happens is, this is your third option. So what happens in this case is, every time you make a pull, you're assuming that that uh, you want to update the data in the target tables, which is here. So that is why what you're doing is you're like writing through a script approach or through some kind of transformation logic in the ETL or in some place, right? You are trying to set this updated timestamp in the source system that is coming from source system to always the current date and timestamp, so that when the IR engine actually picks up, then it will always see that your updated timestamp, which is your source recency timestamp, is always greater than the last scan. Hence, it will update this record. So yeah, these are three options, as I mentioned, to fix this, right? So let's do a quick recap. So here, what we're discussing is about a scenario where your CI is not getting updated, uh, or when you want to pull the like when you want to fix the data in your CMDB, then it is not happening even though you're making a pull. And why is that happening? That is because there is a field called last scan in sys object source, and there is a field called source recency timestamp in your IRE payload. So these two control like how IRE considers a record as an update versus ignoring that update, right? So we suggested three options. One, make a fix in the source system, which means whatever the field which is used to map your source recency timestamp, you update that so that IRA will treat that as the latest update. The second option is update the last scan timestamp in the sys object source table so that set it to the older date so that it will treat that whatever update comes from the source system is later than the current the last scan, right? That's second option. The third option is if you want to treat the update coming from source system always as the latest update, and every time you make a pull, you want the records to be updated, irrespective of whether they have changed or not. Then what you can do is you can uh, update this the updated timestamp coming from source system in the import set level to the current date and timestamp, so that it always is later than the last scan, right? And that way, ServiceNow the IRE will always try to update the record in the target tables. So there are three options. Thank you for watching. This is Anil.